Tampa General Hospital and USF Health Morsani College of Medicine are bringing the power of academic medicine to Palm Beach County and the Treasure Coast. For nearly 2 decades, Tampa General has been ranked as one of the nation's best hospitals. And for over 50 years, Tampa General has been Florida's leading academic health system. Learn more about their growing network of physicians at tgh.org/the Palm Beaches. So welcome back to the Palm Beach North podcast. I'm your host, Noel Martinez, and today I am so excited to have one of the coolest dudes you'll ever meet. His name is Clint Lowe. He is the engineering chief of staff and engineering footprint strategy lead at Carrier. In case you haven't heard of Carrier, they are the global leader in climate and energy solutions. They're known for innovation in heating and air conditioning, and their global headquarters is right here in Palm Beach County. We're so lucky to have him here, and I'm really excited to have Clint because I mentioned he's such a cool dude. This guy flew a Blackhawk helicopter in the Army. So can't wait to talk to you about that. We're going to talk a little bit about his role, and of course, we're going to talk a little bit about Carrier. Clint, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Noel. Such a warm welcome and such a privilege to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, Clint. Yeah. All right, so let's start with your story. You've got such a cool story. Tell me about where you grew up.
Yeah, so the beginning of my journey, so I'm probably going to give you more information you want about where I'm from, but it's such an obscure place and I take every opportunity to tell people as much as I can. So I'm from Guyana, Georgetown, Guyana. Guyana different than Ghana. There were traditionally 3 Guyanas, British, French, and Dutch Guyana. As they became independent, Guyana became just Guyana. Then French Guyana still exists today, and Dutch Guyana became Suriname. So Guyana is on the northeastern coast of South America between Venezuela and Suriname. It's north of Brazil. We're called the land of many waters. 75% of it is still forested and unpopulated. So the population is less than 1 million people, so about 800,000 people total. So very small, traditionally impoverished, right? Within the recent years, that's changed. There was a big oil find off the coast, which we're now able to invest in things like infrastructure. But the point being, Guyana is a very simple, very, I would say, obscure place. Unfortunately made famous by Jim Jones from California. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was my beginning was Guyana. I mean, I'm so proud of where I'm from.
What's it like growing up in Guyana? I mean, what were you like? What were you like as a kid?
As a kid, I was a quiet, shy kid, right? Extremely active. Spent a lot of time outdoors. Me and my brother, I have one sibling. My brother, he's older than me by about a year, but Guyana is not, our yard was filled with tons of fruit trees, mango trees, tamarind, coconut. And, a traditional weekend is just me and my brother hanging out in the mango tree, picking fruit off the branches and just eating them just like that. So for me, very simplistic beginnings, but very, very appreciated. Now that I reflect on how simple of a time that was, all I got to do is mentally go back there and just instantly calming. Yeah.
Tell me about your parents. What were they like?
So mom and dad, I think back to traditional weekends, mom laundry, dad is cooking, me and my brother outside riding our bikes, very close with my parents. I talk to my mom almost every day. We talk about everything. I've been such a strong advocate and supporter for my mom because all I've ever witnessed from her is sacrifice and hard work. And she's really instilled those things in me. Similarly with my dad, he was the guy that was involved in everything, right? He was a professional field hockey player. He was involved with the Motorsport Association in Guyana. So he was like a track marshal. So I'd go to races all the time with him. So, very fond memories of both. They both live in New York, which is where I grew up. But yeah, my mom and dad, extremely cool, very open, always very receptive to my passions in life and very supportive of those as well.
So how did you guys end up in the States? So you mentioned you grew up in
Yeah.
New York. So how did you end up in the States?
Yeah. So going back a little further, so my grandfather was actually the chief education officer of Guyana. Very, very strict. He was a headmaster or a principal, as you call here. And he was very influential in my upbringing. I mentioned Guyana being a very poor country traditionally. The education opportunities, there weren't many there. As the, more, meaningful jobs started moving overseas, right? A lot of those doctors, lawyers, teachers immigrated away from Guyana. So the opportunity was less and less to get a good education. My parents, knowing this, made the decision that we would move our family from Guyana, and we immigrated here. I moved to Hialeah, Florida, actually first. It's not
That's where I'm from, right? We talked about
I know,
this.
and you resonate with this because you told me about your simple beginnings as well, so we can connect on that level. But yeah, moved to Hialeah, did junior high school. Then I moved to New York, finished up junior high, went to high school, and straight in the military from there.
Straight into the military. I want to get into the military, but you have such a beautiful family. So we've got to talk about your wife and your 3 girls.
Thank you. Thank
right.
you
So
much.
talk to me. How did you meet your wife? And then we'll talk about the girls.
Meeting my wife. So my wife, Rose, is the coolest story that I think it is because it was so unexpected. And here we are this year going to celebrate our 20-year anniversary together.
Congrats.
Orientation day of college. A little bit late coming into campus. I'm turning right into the campus. She's coming across a crosswalk and I'm looking down for something in my car seat or whatever. And I almost run her over as she's already in the crosswalk. So I stomp on the brake. I said, go ahead and cross. She's like, no, you go ahead. Now, obviously there's other words that are coming out of her.
Probably a few fingers in the air too, right?
So I said, no, you go ahead. She said, no, you go ahead. And we're both stubborn. I just put my car in park and I sat there. She eventually walked across, right? Most obscure type of meeting. But anyways, I go park, go to my orientation class, sit down, get my books out. The door opens and guess who walks in? So everything I could do to try to just avoid eye contact with her, I did. And that was the beginning of a beautiful story, right? Because then we started getting into the same groups and we'd have these blueberry muffin dates in between classes. And, whenever she stepped out the class, yours truly was there with an umbrella waiting for her. And it's been an incredible journey. Like I said, this year it's going to be 20 years. And I love thinking back to that, that eventuality. I either ran her over or, we're together as life partners. So.
Well, you're very proud of your 3 daughters.
I am.
They are 3 amazing girls. So talk to me a little bit about your girls.
Yeah. So I have 3 girls. My oldest is Diana. She's 24. My middle daughter is Kendall. She's 12. And then my youngest is Carter, and she's 6. These girls are just, they've completely reinvented like my thought process on like life and so many things. And I learned so much from them every single day. And just an incredible amount of love that comes from each of them every day. So very fortunate in that regard.
And they're involved in a lot of different stuff, right?
Absolutely.
So talk to me about some of their activities, because I know you run them all over town all the time.
So probably the most busy one, my daughter Kendall, she goes to Bach. She's also into modeling, acting. She's done a lot of work in the past. She's been featured in 2 books. If you're ever on a Disney Wish, her image is actually on the ship outside of the salon as the Black Rapunzel. So she's had some tremendous amount of work with modeling. She's been my youngest also into modeling. She's been featured with American Girl dolls, different ads for like VTech toys. They're just into everything. So between mom and I, it's, we got them signed up with agencies, and it's like you get a call, hop on the plane or jump in the car, and you're 2 or 3 states away, for them. But, for me, it's something that brings a lot of joy to me just to see how much they enjoy it. And for me, it's about giving them the opportunity and then letting them kind of decide whether that's the path for them or not. But we recently went on a cruise. We didn't go on a Disney cruise, but next to the ship, she saw the Disney Wish and her eyes just lit up, just the sheer thought that, there's a life-size image of her on the ship. And, so we love supporting them in that.
But Disney's got to give you like a free cruise or something out of that,
you would
right?
think, right?
No free cruises.
No free cruises.
Oh, man.
Thanks for your service.
Oh, my goodness. Well, hey, let's talk about your service.
Sure.
14 years in the military.
Yes.
Right? What inspired you to join the military?
Yeah. So I wouldn't say it's one single thing. I mentioned I have an older brother. He had joined the year previous to me. So that was 2001. This is right after 9/11. He had gone in a year earlier and he was, he sent back pictures of just, foreign travel, complete independence. And here I am finishing up my last year in high school. And for me, the choice between going to college versus starting my life, one was more appealing than the other, right? I applied to a few colleges. I got in, mentioned my simple beginnings. I have no means of paying for college. But also I had a full awareness that, the timing of what I was trying to do and the full magnitude of what I was about to put myself into. And just made the choice that, I wanted to go ahead to start my life. I had a passion for aviation. I started flying in high school. We used to get a grant. And I wanted to continue that. And I saw the military as a path toward a few things: independence, continuing my passion of flying, and, just kind of charting my own course in life. So 2 months after high school, I was in the military.
You were in the military and you did some really cool stuff in the military. And I talked about flying a Blackhawk, like how much you can't get any cooler than that. Yeah. So talk to me about that. What's the process to become a Blackhawk pilot?
Yeah, well, thanks for the question, Noel. So as with everything else, very unconventional. So I joined as enlisted. I actually started out as an aircraft maintainer. So I did aircraft structural repair on Blackhawks, Chinook and Apache helicopters, everything from everything that deals with the structure of the aircraft, from the windshields to the blades to the sheet metal, formers, stringers, bulkheads. All that was my forte as far as maintenance. Did that for about 3 years. I was in Korea, stationed there for 2 years. This is when I was first exposed to the medevac community, medical evacuation. Then I spent a year in Germany, but throughout that time, you could only fly as an officer in the military. So I had to submit what's called a green to gold packet, which was a scholarship program that allowed me to leave active duty, go back to school, earn my degree, earn my commission, then come back to active duty. So I found out about this in Germany. I left after 3 years, came off active duty, went back to school, which leads us to how I met my wife. And then earned my undergrad and Bachelor of Science in Aerospace, and then earned my commission and came back to active duty. Now, between that time period, between your junior year and your senior year, you're assessed on a few different criteria, right? And then you get on what's called an OML, an Officer Merit List, that then leads to your choice of a branch within the military, right? For me, I can only see aviation as my choice. Obviously, you don't always get your choice. You might end up being a logistics officer or something else. But, your grades counted for a big portion of that. I was fortunate enough to have the grades I needed to be where I need to be on the list, and just got selected for the branch that I wanted. And from there, starts this other journey of now you're always a soldier first. So you go to your basic officer leadership course first. You learn how to, infantry tactics, leading soldiers. And then after you finish your basic leadership, you get onto your more advanced courses. Then you learn about being an aviation officer. And then you get into being a pilot. And between that, you got to pass Dunker School, which is, they try to drown you in a pool.
Sounds like fun.
You got to pass SEER School. And then you get onto the actual aircraft training, which is about based on the backlog between a year and a half of training.
So what does a typical day look like for a Blackhawk pilot? Like what a typical mission or typical day? Like walk me through that.
So I'll give you two perspectives, one from the training perspective.
Okay.
And when you're stationed within the continental United States, and then secondly, as a deployment as a pilot. The armies and the armed forces, we train, right? When you get into the actual scenario, when you're in a near peer fight, you want to make sure you're not now learning your core competencies, right? So you train relentlessly. You'll go to NTC in California for a month. You'll go to Fort Polk in Louisiana for a month, and you'll hone in on your craft and your skill, right? You'll learn to fly in mountain environments. You'll learn to fly in dusty environments. You'll learn to fly cross country. You'll learn to fly tactically, Now, when you actually employ that training in an deployed environment, a day in the life of a pilot is it's different based on the platform you fly. So me being a Blackhawk pilot and flying medical evacuation, essentially there's a rotation schedule where you're 48 hours on, 24 hours off, 48 hours on, 24 hours off. And within that duty cycle, you're either a first up or a second up bird, primary, alternate. And you have a radio and you're waiting for a call, right? You're in a combat theater of operations. And, when the radio goes off, there's a DOD mandate that you'll be off the ground no more than 15 minutes. Those wheels will be up off that tarmac. So it's rehearsal to get the aircraft off the ground as quickly as possible, because when the call comes in, you're looking for what's the enemy situation, what's my intel brief, what special equipment do I need? Is there a gunship to go along with me? What's the grid coordinate I'm going to? So it's a lot that has to happen within that span of 15 minutes before you're flipping switches and your wheels up off the ground. So that's a perspective on deployed environment where you're just on mission and you're turned on versus you're relentlessly training in a more CONUS environment.
Was there a moment during your military career that really tested you, right? Or one that just really, really sticks?
Yeah.
Like something that you'll never forget. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe I'll shift gears a little bit to my more personal side. And I'll go back a little bit to give you some backstory. Before I left for Afghanistan in 2012, my wife was pregnant, and we got all the support from the command team to say, "Don't worry about it. Clint will get a mid-tour. He'll come back home for the birth of your child. We'll time it. So once you enter, that trimester and you're ready to go, Clint will come home for a week or two." Now the time leading up to that, to the birth, were met right in the middle of the fighting season in Afghanistan. So we were stationed RC South. This is where the Panjway Valley is. A lot of the poppy seed is grown. It's one of these times where the op tempo is high and the assets are critical for the region. And so therefore, when it came time for me to go back home for my daughter's birth, the answer was, "Clint, you're mission critical. We can't let you go." So I was on duty. Actually, I remember watching my daughter's birth over Skype at the time.
Oh my gosh.
And my wife will tell you, she remembers the radio going off and me getting a mission call and having to run away from the Skype call to go on a mission. But that was, to answer your question, big, something that stuck with me and really caused me to evaluate a lot of my path and journey, right? As I think about a young single individual entering the armed forces versus, here I am probably at the, 10-year mark or so. What does the next 10 years look like, right? Is that 10 years and retire, or 10 years and what does my family's situation look like after those 10 years, right? So a lot of that was my kind of stepping back and looking at these different avenues. And for me, the choice was, I don't want to see my wife in that much pain that I can't be a part of, a life event, right? Because that's significant. I met my daughter when she was 7 months old, my middle one. It was just time to kind of shift gears, challenge myself in a new and different way. And I was ready for that. So that's the one thing that kind of stuck with me from that.
Well, you know what? I want to get into Carrier a little bit and talk a little bit about what Carrier does. But before we do that, why don't we take a quick little break for our medical minute?
Of course.
We'll be right back. So we're talking with Dr. Ahmed El-Haddad, the Director of Acute Care Navigation for Tampa General Hospital here for today's Medical Minute. Doc, let's get right into it. I get asked every day, why is Tampa General here on the East Coast?
We're here to support the local hospitals and provide services that are not available in the community.
What does that mean for your patients?
It gives them opportunity and access to the latest innovations that healthcare has to offer that's only available at an academic center like Tampa General Hospital.
What happens if they need complex care and you have to get them over to Tampa?
We have a concierge service. We have 4 helicopters that arrange for immediate transport of the patient to provide them with immediate access of healthcare.
Awesome. Well, that was great. Thank you so much. And that was your Medical Minute brought to you by TGH. All right, so we're back into this. Let's talk about Carrier, right? I am excited. I mean, we're so excited to have their global headquarters, worldwide headquarters right here in Palm Beach Gardens. So for people that don't know who Carrier is, can you tell us a little bit about what they do?
Sure. Yeah. So Carrier is the coolest company we know, pun intended.
Boom, boom.
No, Carrier was started, Willis Carrier invented modern air conditioning in 1902. Air conditioning since then has been a traditionally antiquated technology, right? It's also been an enabler for so much. You think about the ability to have more than single-story buildings because now you have the ability to cool them. You think about the way that it's affected civilizations because people are now able to live in places that traditionally weren't able to before. So, I think, and I'll speak for myself, before I got in the industry, the understanding of heating and cooling, it's almost like, all you care is, your home is cool in the summer, it's hot in the winter. You don't care how it gets done. But when you start to peel back those layers and understand how much of an impact, air conditioning, HVAC, refrigeration has had on our world and our society, it's incredible. Fast forward maybe a few decades and you start to have different regulation now forcing you into different changes within the portfolio, changes in the technology, innovation, Paris agreements, the Kigali agreements that, mandate certain phase downs of HFCs led us to basically redesign our entire portfolio product with new lower global warming potential refrigerants and to move to A2Ls. And now, even fast forward a few years beyond that, I'll mention COVID as you renewed the focus on healthy buildings, healthy air, and then to today, right? When you look at how connected of a world that we live in, consumers like us demand, I want to pick up my phone and be able to adjust the temperature at home while I'm sitting here. But also, you think about prognostics. The ability to have predictive analytics built into your product. We're at a point now where when you look at traditional split systems for a residence where you have an outdoor condenser and indoor evaporator, you now are looking at whole home solutions, right? So we have a product called HEMS, the Home Energy Management System, that you think about combining an electric boiler, electric heat pump, PV photovoltaics, solar panels, and electric boilers together. And this is a package solution that allows you to offload the grid, right? Saving energy, but also be more sufficient. Because when you start to integrate that whole home solution with things like, AI, you can see how that evolution from simple cooling to today continue to evolve and innovate with the industry. Incredible opportunities for HVAC today and ahead, right? And we haven't even talked about the mega trends of globalization, growing middle classes. Just an incredible industry to be a part of.
What really makes the company stand out? Is it innovation?
Absolutely. I mean, we were built on innovation. I mean, Willis Carrier invented the modern air conditioner, right?
Yeah.
And so for us, it's continuing that legacy of innovation in everything that we do, right? And even outside of that, I mean, it's an innovate or die world, right? Where you're always looking to disrupt yourself before you're disrupted by someone else, a competitor or someone else. And they could even be outside of the industry, right? So for us, it's absolutely core, right? We have adequate investment in R&D. I like to be at the forefront of the product and technology, which is why I chose to be in engineering. But absolutely, innovation is a core strength of ours.
Let's talk about your role. You're in engineering, right? So you're engineering chief of staff. Tell me about that role. And then I want to talk about your role as the engineering footprint strategy lead. That's a long title. Yeah. Tell me about that. They're two separate roles, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. They're more of a dual role. So as I think about chief of staff, it's not conventional by any means. You're essentially supporting the strategic initiatives of the leader of that vertical, in this case being engineering. And you're overall a coordinator, right? As you bring together leadership across all different functions, not just engineering, but operations, digital, finance, bringing all that leadership together to execute on strategic initiatives, right? You're also addressing day-to-day opportunities. For example, today, right, we have a deliverable and I'm spending time to create products for, different types of communication, but it's also a more long-term investment in how do we shape the organization? How do we operate more effectively? How do we implement things like Lean, Six Sigma, Shannon, Red X, different methodologies that help to improve the efficiency of the organization.
What does your typical day look like? We talked about your typical day as a pilot. Now, what's your typical day like now?
Yeah. So a typical day for me is, I've got to be very forward looking, right? I'm looking out in some cases 5 to 7 years in a strategy role, but also I'm looking into next week and the week after that. What do we have? Different commitments to our customers, to the organization, to our local communities. How am I looking to those obligations and helping to support our deliverables for those?
What are some of the biggest challenges that you face in really optimizing Carrier's global goals?
Yeah. So as you know, anytime you have a people component, right, that's always going to challenge you the most.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes, it's like herding cats, the cliched term. But I think we have a really great culture at Carrier. We're such a global organization. We have a lot of good established processes around, how we work together as a team. You could think about the Asia Pacific region and our colleagues there being in a completely different time zone than us, so it's that early morning connection or that late at night connection to, deliver on synergies. But it's the people component, I think, that challenges us the most. But, I think what's helped us address that is a culture, the amazing culture that we have. Yeah.
Tell me about or give me an example of a project or a strategic initiative that you have led for the company.
Sure. So recently we have shifted our model to a center of excellence model within engineering. So we have a mechanical COE, an electrical COE, software and control COE that then supports the business unit and the systems teams. This is something that, when I kicked off my role, we went through this entire transformation orchestrated by me, the different leaders. And here we are today in a very well-oiled machine, in terms of how do those centers of excellence now serve the customer, serve the BUs, and serve the systems teams.
All right, let's get into leadership a little bit. What motivates you? What gets you up in the morning? What gets you all jazzed up?
Yeah. So these days, It's really my kids. I've shifted my focus much more on family now, right? Seeing my kids, seeing their drive. I think back to what I was like at their age, and to compare that to who my children are today. I've got to continue to feed that, to nurture that, and for me, getting up and really setting that example of discipline, of resilience. There's always going to be a morning you don't want to get out of bed at 5 and go in the grind, but I want to be able to set that example for my kids, right? Life is not always going to be about doing what you want when you want. You're going to have your obligations. And that drives me, right, to continue to set that example for them on, on how you attack life, on leadership, on parenting, and right kind of values and morals. So absolutely, they get me up.
I'll tell you what I love about you is that you're very, very passionate about giving back, right? What organizations are you involved with? And tell us why.
Yeah, thanks, Noel. So leaving the military, I wanted to continue to, I had all this time now, right? I mean, you never realize how much you didn't do while you're on active duty. When you leave and the weekend rolls around and you're like, I have time for hobbies. I have time for, learning some new skill or some new talent. You also have time to give back, right? Because I reflect on my path to where I am today. And it's only because of everyone else that took the time to nurture my growth and my journey. So giving back is important to me. And I've aligned that around what's personally important to me, which is veterans. So I've volunteered with Habitat for Humanity in various capacities all across the United States, right? When I started with Carrier in Indianapolis, very heavily involved with Habitat for Humanity. As you know, Carrier is also sponsors all of the HVAC systems that go into the homes as well. So that was another synergy. Now here, as I moved to Palm Beach Gardens and kind of building my footprint here, Habitat for Humanity of Greater Palm Beach County gave me the opportunity to serve as a Veterans Committee member, right? We made an incredible impact in 2023. They've asked me to be chair for 2024. Another incredible year of leading this committee to achieve some incredible things. And furthermore, they asked me to stay for 2025. So here I am, Smart. 2025. Again, very pleased about leading Veterans Build as a co-chair along with Mike for 2025. So, veterans are my passion. Habitat is a great way to connect that passion with action. And so absolutely, happy to deliver, this year.
So there are a lot of people that are going to be listening to this or watching this online. They're going to be like, gosh, I want to be like that guy. Like that guy's done some really cool stuff. What kind of advice would you give a young incoming professional or, gosh, a veteran trying to get back into the workforce? What kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah, good question. And again, I always like to relate back to my own personal journey and experiences because it's something I can speak on. I'll start with veterans. It's not always an easy path to transition out of the military into the civilian world, right? And be successful at it. The military does a barely adequate, borderline inadequate job of preparing you for what's next, right? You're going to go through a transition process where you're looking at things like, okay, how do I create a resume, right? These are great things for entry-level positions, but when you have families, when you have, your own ambitions for your own growth, it's completely inadequate. The transition is not always easy. So to answer your question, I would say be patient, right? Preparation is going to be key. Don't rush into, I got to first take the first thing that's available to me, because as with many things, it's easier to get into than get out of, right? So be patient, right? Do that introspection, that self-reflection on what are my strengths? What am I passionate about? Where do I want my journey to lead, right? For us as veterans, sometimes we don't get that choice, right? You're moving every 2 years to where the military assigns you. Your kids are subjected to schools that are in those neighborhoods and communities. So now is the time, right? As you start out to think about, where do I want my kids to go to school? Where do I want to live? How is my job going to align with my passion, right? So take that time, do that self-reflection, understand what you're good at and how do you apply those strengths, and do a good job of translating those strengths into what's meaningful for the organization that you intend to be a part of, right? For me, carrier could care less that I was a Blackhawk pilot. For me, I had to translate, my time as an operations officer. How was I leading global strategy and delivering on results? How was I coaching, mentoring, developing teams for success and achieving results? Those things are important. So, take the time to step back, understand, that journey and get started early, right? Don't leave it for the very end. Just start early. So for my veterans listening, start early. 18 months, give yourself a couple more months on top of that. 2 years is a good time to start preparing for that transition. And a lot of this applies to young professionals as well. As you think about aligning your passions with what you want to do, because I think you can agree most oftentimes when those passions align with the job, you love going to work every day, and you're going to invest all of your strength, your energy, and your time into it in the way that it should be.
You're such a great dude. That's great advice. Really, really, really good advice. All right. So we got to start to wrap things up here, but I've got some fun questions I want to sneak in here at the end. So what's something that might surprise people about Clint?
Well,
don't embarrass me here.
Never, Noel. So I am a grandfather. I have 3 grandkids.
Okay.
So that surprised a couple of people.
That surprised me. 3 grandkids?
3 grandkids.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All right.
And so 2, 4, and 7. And my youngest daughter, I mentioned, is 6. So her niece is older than she is. So you can imagine the dynamics of that.
All right. That's a good, interesting fact. All right.
Yeah.
I know you like to read.
Yes.
Right? You've recommended some good books to me already.
Yes.
So what's your favorite book? Podcast? I know you love the Palm Beach North podcast.
Yes.
So you don't have to say that. Favorite book and why?
Favorite book, if I had to choose one. Can I give you 2?
Yes.
Because 2 have been instrumental to me.
Yeah.
Fifth Agreement by Don Miguel Ruiz really covers some foundational things. And I like it because it's not leadership heavy or, it's more about the foundations of how we should approach different scenarios, topics, professional challenges. It's applicable in so many ways. Secondly, I have a deep veteran connection, of course, and I love David Goggins and his no holds barred approach on life, on how he's overcome so much. So David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me was an incredible book to read. And let me tell you, this thing will make you want to, go out and do a marathon or just question, like, what am I doing with my life? A really motivational guy. So yeah, those 2 books, if I had to, keep it just 2.
I wrote it down. I wrote them both down. All right. All right. So if you could have dinner with anyone, past or present, who would that be and why?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll try not to be too cliched, but what really amazes me and causes me to think a lot today is, how we as individuals function, right? I think about in my current role, CEOs, right? These are incredible individuals that accomplish an incredible amount in a very, very efficient way. So for me, it's to understand how we're all wired. I would love to delve into that more, to understand how, as individuals, we have such a varied capacity, right? To take on, this is something that a personal challenge of mine. I'm interested to know where my ceiling is, right? Where do I tap out? Like, where does my capability end, right? And I think I do that by understanding other high-performing individuals and how they think, how they approach life, how they, maneuver their way through different scenarios. So for me, if I could spend time with someone, it would be, some top CEO. You have been instrumental in some ways as well.
Oh, please.
To understand how you do what you do. I mean, this is incredible, right? I love the science of people. Yeah.
Yeah, I love people too. We wouldn't be doing what we're doing if we don't like people, right?
Absolutely.
All right, last question. You're almost off the hook. Deep question. I ask everybody this question, right? You've done some really cool stuff in your life. Mm-hmm. Awesome dad, grandpa. I didn't even realize you were a grandpa. What do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, that's a deep question. I led off with the influence of my grandfather on my own life. If there's one person that I could name as contributing to where I am today in the greatest capacity, with my grandfather. Didn't accept anything less than, the strive to be better, right? For me, as I think about legacy, after my grandfather passed, it was hard for me because, as you know, even at my age, I'm still coming to certain realizations about my own path, my own journey, my own upbringing. And for me, it's a deeper and deeper appreciation for the time that my grandfather spent to mold, to shape, to instill values that I still hold today. And so for me, my legacy is to do the same. Now that I'm a grandfather, I have this amazing opportunity to be as influential in a similar way for my own grandchildren, right? We sometimes, we don't appreciate how important family and different people are in our lives. I think grandparents are one of those. So for me, what I want my legacy to be is, how have I impacted in a positive way my children, my family, my grandkids? Those things are important to me. So it's, what that means is good morals, living my life ethically, and giving them as much love as I can to arm them for the world that we live in.
That's awesome. Great answer. Yeah. Great answer. All right. So we're all done. I want to give you a chance to kind of sell this thing. So where does someone get more information on the veteran build, and how can they help you?
Absolutely.
How can they support?
Absolutely. So thank you so much. Habitat for Humanity, Greater Palm Beach County. You can reach out to them on their website. We have multiple ways you can support the Veterans Build. Also, you can contact me personally. You can find me on LinkedIn, Clint Lowe. Look for the Blackhawk backdrop. But please contact me directly. I would love to provide additional information on how you can support the Veterans Build for 2025. Whether that be, just coming out to support one of our builds, or what that means, sponsorship or donation in kind, whatever that looks like for you in whatever capacity, would love to have it. So please reach out to Habitat for Humanity, Greater Palm Beach County, and we'll give you more information on Veterans Build.
Oh, man, this is so good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy, have a ton going on.
Absolutely.
But what a great conversation. It was great to spend some time with you on air.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. I'm really excited about your engagement in the chamber. And I know you're going to get even more engaged here in the future. Yeah. So thank you for what you're doing now. Thank you for what you're going to do in the future. And thank you for your service.
Thank you, Noel. Thank you for the support, and thank you for the privilege of being here. And I'm looking forward so much to continue these interactions with you and the amazing team you have at the chamber.
Awesome. Well, that's all we got for you guys. Make sure to like, follow, tell all your friends about all the amazing things going on in Palm Beach North. We look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks. See you soon. Thank you.
See you. Thanks.